Introducing new players into Sea of Thieves can be a wild ride. One minute, they're failing miserably.
Left click is to ignite it. Right click is to turn it off. Don't go!
And the next,
What?
Off the backboard!
What the hell is that? Look!
if you've ever thought your situation couldn't get any worse and were suddenly greeted by a kraken, hit that like and subscribe button. Now on with the video. In this next chapter on our road to Pirate Legend, my son and I were having a lot of success recently, and we were feeling confident enough to run a brig with just the two of us. After gathering supplies at a Spanish fort, we set our sights to the Ashen Winds event nearby, especially since we spotted ships in the area. Rolling up on his sloop, I knew he was somewhat experienced because he wasn't anchored and had his sails up, unlike way too many of you do.
Stop it. Get some help.
Realizing he couldn't save his ship, he instead attempted to attack ours. With this distraction dealt with, we started to get ready to do Ashen Winds, but we weren't the only ships attracted to the event. Beelining towards them, we initiated the chase. It came to an end when it decided to park at a fort. The player didn't go down without a fight, engaging us from the fort's tower and trying to board our ship. So then we're left with a question: if a ship isn't in water, how does it sink? Well, it eventually despawned and we were on our way back to Ashen Winds, but not before finding the player tucked on our boat. Mad respect for the solo sloop because he put up a hell of a fight. Having spent a lot of our supplies, we decided to get some more before tackling Ashen Winds. And unfortunately for this guy, we stumbled upon an unlucky pirate in the middle of selling. He didn't know how to sell the sovereigns, apparently. On our way back to do Ashen Winds, we ran into the skeleton galleon that offered to assist us in a later fight in exchange for my firstborn. And so,
bye, have a beautiful time.
finally making our way back to Ashen Winds, we spot two brigs waiting for us, using the rocks and islands to hide our approach. In that time, one of the brigs was either sunk or left. The remaining brig did a good job hiding itself, but given the fact that we saw it already, and I often do hide in the same manner, it didn't help. While its crew wasn't caught completely unaware, their reaction wasn't fast enough, and the fight was swift. Finally getting the chance to finish Ashen Winds, we cash out and call it a night. On our next run, we started off with a skeleton galley, but as usual, it can never be easy, and we got krakened. My son attempted to scare it with his excited battle cry, but it didn't work. If you were ever wondering if a skelly ship would get attacked by a kraken, now you know. Unfortunately, we weren't prepared for this and ran out of cannonballs right as another brig showed up. Knowing it would take time to kill the skelly ship and the kraken, we sailed back looking for the brig. Battled it out, and got our revenge. After a small skirmish with the sloop Pirate Legend, we were back to gathering loot and supplies when we spotted another brig to sink. As we were looting and resupplying, the brig came back for seconds. After a lengthy skirmish, we heard that they were low on supplies. We pressed our luck, but they were able to escape. We used that time to try and reclaim the remainder of our loot and supplies. As expected, however, they were smart enough to leave one of their crew at the fort to slow us down long enough for them to come back and resupply. To his credit, he succeeds and we're only able to get our loot but not supplies. Sailing away to buy time, our old Skelly ship friend shows up to say hi. After a few love taps, the Skelly captain makes good on his promise and begins to shove itself right into the bricks behind. My son unleashes his inner Kobe.
Irving off the backboard.
And we make swift work of the brig, finishing off the Skelly for the loot and cash out. On the next run, we decided that the sloop would be the better boat of choice as we leveled Order of Souls. As we were making our way to a Spanish fort, we stumbled upon a merchant emissary, and then the chase was on. With the ship's supplies, we started hitting up islands for the skeleton captains. While looting a Spanish fort, we noticed, now what should have happened,
Out the way! Out the way! I swear to God. Unbelievable.
but given the amount of times we've caught people unaware, our reaction was more like,
To arms! To arms!
and then... Finishing up the Skelly fleet, we moved to do a fort. Almost done, the boss decided to bug out and bury itself. With no way to attack it, we go to resupply at a nearby outpost in hopes that the boss would reset its position. So, in an unconscious attempt to make things way more difficult than they needed to be, we rammed our way back into the fort while the storm was going on. It was fun, not stressful, and not harder than it needed to be at all, for real. But afterwards, I finally got to sell my first chest of legends. Having cashed out, we decided to get a little cheeky and went back to looking for the powder kegs we left at the fort. So, with our old friends nearby, we entered into the powder keg exchange program. The first one didn't go so well for us, but the second...
No, I don't think I'm gonna make it. Wait. I'm on.
With that done, we went back to farming rep for a little bit, and then we noticed the Reaper at Ashen Winds. Still having a stronghold keg, a plan starts to formulate. We closed the gap, keeping the island between us, and as we rolled up, we realized it was the same brick crew from before. At this point, we were starting to feel a little bit like bullies, but honestly, rocking Reapers while doing Ashen Winds, the lesson of keeping your eyes on the horizon needed to be delivered, and so we were the happy messengers. Having survived the initial keg, mostly, the chase was on. The chaos took them over, and then they found themselves beached. Having ran across the island, my son charges into the now beached boat and dispatches the remaining crew. The boss was 2 trident hits away from death, so it was a quick gather and a cash out for the night. By this point, an old buddy from my time playing the Cycle Frontier decided to join me on the high seas. The start was a little...
So you pick it up. Right, left click is to ignite it. Right click is to turn it off. Don't go!
But after some time, he began showing me things I didn't even know were possible in this game.
What?
And before you know it, he was a cannoneering, sinking machine. So on this run, we set off starting our voyage expecting my son to join us shortly, starting off by collecting supplies and starting a Skelly fleet. Now by this point, I've reached Pirate Legend, and I've got some thoughts on that and I'll leave that for later in the video. But the true measure of a captain is how well their crew does. So I'll consider it an accomplishment once I get them to join me in the Athena's hideout with their own legendary status. This run started off pretty uneventful aside from the Skeleton Galley and Meg tag team that was way more annoying than usual. Deciding to sell before tackling a nearby fort, that's when a galley showed up.
Goals or something.
Galleon.
To arms! To arms!
We left my son selling the remaining loot, but shortly after we realized the galley was solo rocking the freest sink of your life skin on their boat. So at this point we could effectively ignore it. We noticed a ship currently doing the skull fort nearby, so we set out to do pirate things. The fort finishes just as we approach, however we soon realized that it would still continue to attract ships. The first crew was smart enough to use the fort towers to kill 2 of us immediately while also filling us with holes. It was critical in buying their crew time to get the ship going. Having to reset, the solo galley rams into the island, distracting the tower gunner, while my son shot over to contest contest the island. By the time he got to the tower, both of the sloop's crew had gone back to the ship. Jockeying for position, they didn't realize we had someone in the tower and fell right into a crossfire. They sank shortly after, crew likely dying during the barrage. Before we even had time to get to the sloop's loot, a brig was on us. It was rocking the free sink skin, so some clean broadsides and a board ended the fight swiftly. As we finally started to collect the loot, the previous sloop showed back up, along with the Kraken. Fighting our way out, the sloop thought it could try to recover the beach loot before we got to it. They were wrong. Looking to call it a night, after selling, we got pushed by a brig that apparently were not interested in fighting unless we were parked. We left my son behind to finish selling the remaining loot while we left some courtesy supplies for a possible fellow pirate at a nearby outpost. During this time, the Reaper's chests were helpful in helping my son get one for free. So like I said earlier, I've attained the title of Pirate Legend. I now understand why people say it's kind of the minimum. You can sidestep a lot of useful content and info during the process, so by no means is it definitive. If you set out to gain it, it's a title that can be attained pretty fast and in my opinion a little too easily. So for those of you just starting out, my advice would generally be take your time, don't rush it, just play the game, it'll happen when it happens. Otherwise, it'll feel kind of empty when you get it pretty fast. So shout out to one of my viewers who gave me a pep talk to try out Hourglass PvP. I'm going through that now. It'll be a fun video to make, commenting about my initial experiences. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see more, help me reach my goal of 250 subs by the end of the month by hitting that like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and as always, good hunting.